Hey, welcome back to my channel. In this video, I'm gonna talk about top 5
best tablets for Photoshop.
Starting at number 5.
Samsung Galaxy Tab. The Samsung Galaxy Tab S9 FE is specifically geared to be a more affordable alternative to the Galaxy Tab S9 range, without the FA. To make it more affordable, you're getting a fairly lightweight processor and an LCD screen instead of an OLED panel, but actually, the LCD screen here has two big advantages over the iPad Air above when competing for your mid-range cache. First, the screen on the Tab S9 FE can reach around 700 nits of brightness, which is far higher than the 500 nits of the iPad Air, and means that it can be significantly more visible in sunlight. It admittedly struggles with convincing black tones, so if you'll mostly use it inside, other screens may offer a more rounded image, but the high brightness is definitely an advantage for taking to outdoor shoots. On top of that, the screen is 90 Hz, compared to the 60 Hz of the iPad Air, which means that animations are smoother and more usefully. It means that if you use the included S Pen for precise editing, you'll see a faster response to your motion, which helps with accuracy. Now, that lightweight processor could also be a downside, but as we've mentioned elsewhere in this guide, Android lacks the more heavyweight photo editing apps that you get on iPadOS and, especially, Windows anyway, so maybe that's not necessarily a problem in itself, but you also need to reckon with the lack of apps. One other advantage of this tablet is that it's built to IP68 water and dust resistance. Try not to drop it in a lake, but it'll stand up to spills or rain, so again great for outdoors work.
Coming at number 4.
Apple iPad Air. The iPad Pro makes number 1 on our list, as it's the best iPad overall for photographers and photos editors when you look at the sum of its parts. But the 10.9-inch iPad Air, launched in March 2022, is a much lower price yet still packs in the great build quality and laptop-like levels of performance of the Pro. It's super light at just 461G, super thin at just 6.1 mm, and with its 11-inch screen it doesn't have too much of a footprint in your bag. We find it to be just the right balance of size and weight in the hand, too. You can throw almost anything at the Apple M1 processor inside, because it's just incredibly capable and comes with 8 GB of RAM. That means some super complex and large multi-layered files might struggle, but that's it. For viewing libraries of files and making instant edits, it's so fast and capable. However, there are clear downsides. The screen is very color accurate, but it's less bright and lacks contrast compared to all the tablets above, and it's 60 Hz instead of 120 Hz. The tablet also only comes with 64 GB or 256 GB of storage, which certainly limits how many files you can keep on it. The USB-C port is good for connecting to storage, though it's not Thunderbolt, like the iPad Pro, but there's no other way to expand it. The built-in cameras are solid quality, so it's a very strong machine for the price as long as you don't need the things you give up to get there.
At number 3.
Samsung Galaxy Tab. This Android's equivalent to the iPad Pro at the top of our list, so if you want something equally slick and slender, but tied to Samsung or Google systems instead of Apple's, it may be ideal. Our experience with is naturally focused on its huge, beautiful OLED screen. We find it to be marginally less sharp than the iPad Pros, but only because it's bigger, so we've no problem with that trade-off. It's an OLED screen, which means pixel-precise contrast and dimming, so it offers unparalleled contrast and depth to darker areas. And while it's not as bright as the iPad Pro's 1000 nits with HDR apps, it still manages close to 700 nits, which is far above average. Most laptops and tablets are 500 nits maximum. It has a 120 Hz refresh rate and support for Samsung S Pen for responsive precision editing. The Snapdragon chip that powers it isn't as mind-blowing as the M2 chip in the iPad Pro, but you're unlikely to ever feel the limits of its power. It's extremely capable, and offers up to 16 GB of RAM. However, the notable downside of this compared to the other premium options is that the reason you won't push this processor to its limits is that the apps available are so limited in scope. Photoshop Express is not even close to its iPad equivalent, let alone the desktop version, and there's nothing as powerful as Affinity Photo to fill the gap. There are editing apps, no question, and being able to view your photos and lightly edit them may be all you need, but we prefer the headroom to get from the iPad Pro, which is why it sits above this option. However, there are two major upsides to this tablet that may also sway you. First is the microSD slot, so you can add up to 1 terabyte of storage in addition to the up to 1 terabyte of storage you can get on board. That's a lot of pictures. Second is that Samsung's multitasking interface on its tablets is the best in the business, so it's really easy to work on things side by side, or switch around between apps. It feels very natural and slick. So as a total work machine that happens to be excellent for viewing photos as well, this is a great package.
Number 2 of my list.
Microsoft Surface Pro. If you absolutely need the full version of Photoshop or Lightroom on the go, or any number of other desktop-class photo editing apps, this is our recommendation. It's the Windows 11 tablet that best balances portability, screen quality, and performance, providing a great canvas for photographers. Its Intel Core i5 or i7 processor is capable of handling on-the-go editing tasks no problem, and yet still somehow offers up to 16 hours of battery life, which is obviously incredibly useful. It also has 2 Thunderbolt 4 ports to connect to your camera and storage at the same time, and has up to 1 terabyte of its own storage. The screen is impressive in terms of its color accuracy, and its resolution of 2880 x 1920 is pleasingly crisp. It's not as bright and lacks the deep contrast that the mini LED backlight of the iPad Pro or the OLED panel of the Samsung tablet below can deliver, but in terms of general quality compared to most laptop screens, it's great. There's a 10MP rear-facing autofocus camera with 1080p HD and 4K video, plus a 5MP front-facing camera with 1080p Full HD video, though neither is anything to write home about. The Surface Pen stylus is also available for precision editing, and the screen is 120 Hz, so it feels very responsive to use. For anyone who needs a machine that's zero compromise when it comes to software, this is the one.
And number 1.
Apple iPad Pro. The latest 12.9-inch iPad Pro M2 is hands down our best tablet for photo editing available today based on our testing, thanks to its particular combination of screen quality, power, connectivity, and software. Our testers are particularly besotted with that 13-inch display. Featuring a detailed resolution of 2732 by 2048 that we found to be great for seeing the detail in your pictures, it's the brightness and contrast that really elevate it. Featuring tiny mini LEDs across the whole panel, it can hit 1000 nits of full-screen brightness when using HDR apps, which is much higher than other tablets here, making it more visible in bright lighting. It can hit 1600 nits of HDR brightness in small areas, even. And the advantage isn't just brightness. Highly localized dimming of the backlight means dark areas look more realistically dark, or truly black, which is rare in LCD screens. It all combines to make images look more true to life than other screens. Crucially, the colors are highly accurate too. For precision editing, it supports Apple Pencil 2, and has a 120 Hz refresh rate.
Check out this video description for latest price and more informations. Thank you for watching this video. Please subscribe and stay tuned.